Welcome to Dakota Preparedness. This video is going to be about tools. Now, one of the things that we as humans are known for is using tools. And you have to make an assessment of your own needs. But as a starter, I'm going to present to you a number of tools that are essential in a short-term or long-term emergency. And I'm going to provide them in 6 different major functional areas. But before I even get started, let me say that pretty much any man can fill up a man cave full of tools. And if my wife is any example, she could fill up a couple she sheds of things that she feels are essential tools. But one of the key things that you need to have on hand is a good pair of gloves. Leather gloves is what I would suggest. Most people aren't used to a lot of manual labor, and the last thing you want to do after a few days of work is have your hands all blistered during an emergency. So have a good pair of leather gloves. Now, the first functional area that I'm going to talk about is moving dirt. So I live in the middle of the forest in a cabin, and we have to do a lot of dirt moving for various things over the years. But I've lived in big cities in a standalone home and in an apartment. And yes, if you live in a standalone home, you're going to use dirt moving techniques and tools more often than you would in an apartment. But one of the key things is a shovel. And I suggest a regular long-handled shovel so that you can get some good leverage and use good body mechanics. Lift with your legs, not your back, that type of thing. Now, if you're going mobile, one of the key things you could have in place of a full-length shovel is have an Army folding shovel. And actually, I own one of them, and it's quite nice. Now, I prefer a World War II shovel. They're just built to take a beating and keep on going, as it's proven that I'm probably using one that's 50, 60, 70 years old. But a modern folding shovel from the Army is an excellent instrument because of its lightweight and compactness. Next is I find whenever I have to move dirt is a pickaxe is really helpful. The property that I own, I swear half the dirt is just pieces of rock. So you need a pick to get through anything if you're digging a hole of any size. So what are some of the projects that I've done for moving dirt? Well, one is on my extended 100-yard driveway. I had to put in a French drain at one spot because it was so much water there. So I had to dig out a ditch and dig a place for the grate and that sort of thing. Also, I've had to build a number of banks to prevent erosion. In a true sugar hit the fan emergency, you might have to dig a foxhole. My father, who fought with the 3rd Infantry Division, says there's nothing better for defense than a foxhole or embankment. One of the projects that I have planned in a long-term emergency is I have a natural spring on my property, and I would want to build what's called a spring box. In other words, have an area for 5 to maybe 50 gallons where the spring flows into, and there's a holding place for that where I've lined it with rocks or maybe even with plastic sheets where I can readily get fresh water from a natural spring. So those are some of the things that you're going to do on moving dirt. And also one of the items you'll want to buy is some sandbags. They can provide excellent ability to protect against erosion, against flooding. Once again, back to security protection if you want to sandbag your foxhole. The second functional area that I want to address is that of fire prevention. You're going to need a leaf rake and a bow rake because one of the key things you want to do is have at least all the leaves and small pieces of wood removed for 100 feet radius around your home. So in my case, actually it works out to be about twice a year. I have to rake up the leaves. Some cases I've burnt them, in other cases I just move them over to part of the property where they can dissolve naturally. But you'll need those for fire prevention. Also, when you do a controlled burn, so for example, when I have what I call blowdown, after a big storm comes through, all sorts of branches have fallen down, I gather those up. I have to cut those up with use of, a tool called a silky saw big boy. Usually does the job. In a few cases, I have to use a katana boy, which is a much larger silky saw, to cut up the larger trunks, and then I burn them all. So you want to be ready for a controlled burn. I have a hose ready, and I have a fire axe ready, and I have the shovel ready, just in case some embers were to float outside the fire pit and cause a fire. I've never had that happen in 7.5 years, but I know from a story when my brother and I were burning some grasslands on my grandmother's orange grove as children, it can get away from you. So you have to be prepared to, one, is prevent a forest fire, and also give your house some chance if a big fire comes. The third functional area is that of using wood as an energy base for your needs. So if things got worse enough, I would have to use wood to heat water, to cook on, and I have Dutch oven utensils. I have a barrel stove, hot water heaters, stainless steel hot water heaters for this purpose. But you need to process that wood, and ideally what would come in very handy is the silky saw big boy and the katana boy for processing wood. Also, you want to have a way to split the logs, and I would use a wedge for this. You simply hammer in the wedge, and then you hammer the wedge in, and so you let it do the work to get yourself some cords of wood. The fourth functional area is that of gardening. If an emergency situation goes too long, you're going to need to become a prepsteader or a homesteader. And one of the most essential basic tools of gardening is to have a trowel and also have garden gloves. The fifth area is that of home repairs. Now, what I've done here is I simply buy one of these, multiple toolkits for home repair, and that seems to address most of my needs. Now, you got to keep in mind that I was never in the construction trades, so it's sort of tools for Joe Average. Now, if you're a master carpenter, I suspect you know exactly what tools you need, and you buy the very best. Now, also, I will say that an electric cordless drill is come in handy many, many times. And the way that I would recharge that is under the energy module. I have a Blue Eddy AC 180 solar generator, and then the backup for that is a Champion 2500 dual fuel, which I only use propane on, so I could easily recharge the batteries that are necessary for the cordless drill. The sixth area is that of automobile repair and small engine repair. Now, once again, I'm not an expert, but I've found that I can get my small engine repairs done, and I can fix swapping out a new battery or diagnosing what needs to be done on a car. And so once again, I have a universal auto repair kit that I've purchased. And once again, if you're a master mechanic, you're going to have the very best tools. You're going to want, you'll know exactly what you want to get. In this video, I have just touched on the very highlights of these 6 functional areas and what tools you need to do to obtain for them. Now, in times when you can go down to Walmart, when you can get online to Amazon, when you can go down to Harbor Freight, this is the time to collect these tools. And they may be unique to each situation. What I've outlined is someone living out in the middle of the woods in a cabin. It's very different than someone living in an apartment or even a standalone home in an urban environment. So think through the functional areas that you might possibly have to do it on your own and have the right tools on hand prior to sugar hitting the fan. A big part of addressing functional areas that you will have to in a short or long-term emergency is having pre-positioned the right tools in place so that you can address the situation. If you find yourself once the situation is evolved and you're in a short-term or long-term emergency, well, if you don't have the right tool, then you can certainly be in a dire situation in many cases. So what's important is to think through what tools might you need in what functional areas and pre-position them. If you found this video helpful, please click like and subscribe. It helps the channel and it helps the community. Be prepared.